Hey YouTube, thanks again for dropping in. Duncan Ryan coming to you from the Guitar Shed, the only place where you can get guitar lessons from a crazy guy with gardening tools in the background. So today what we're going to be talking about is another technique. It's used mostly in lead playing, a little bit in rhythm playing, and it's called legato. And this is one of those things that they tag with a fancy Italian name and it makes it sound super complicated and everything. It really isn't. Basically all it is using a series of hammer-ons and pull-offs on your guitar to make a very, very fluid sound. And let me explain what I mean by hammer-ons and pull-offs for anyone who really doesn't know what that would be so far. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, on the high E string of my guitar, start at the 7th fret and hammer on to the 8th fret, which is just bringing my finger down on the fret and basically sounding the note without picking it. And then I can do the same thing then at the 10th fret, and those are hammer-ons. Pull-offs are exactly the opposite. So legato playing is the use of those two techniques in series, basically. And what that does is, well, like you just heard, it gives a very fluid sound. Because if you listen to, say, an example of a more legato-ish playing technique, versus if I picked every note, you notice there I was picking every other note. Now, if I picked every note, you hear a very different tone, even though it's the exact same notes in the exact same sequence. Now, that isn't all legato is good for. You can even do very, very long series of legato playing. If any of you are familiar with the work of Joe Satriani, he's very famous for using long series of legato playing techniques with very little picking, and it gives him a very fluid sound when he plays. I don't pretend to be that good, but I'm going to try and give you something of an example of that. So what we're going to do is start on the 12th fret of the high E, and I recommend starting on the high E with a technique like this because the tension in that string isn't usually going to be quite as high as, say, on the low E or the A or the D. I recommend starting a technique like this on the easiest string, which is the high E, for me at least. For you it may be something different, and then moving it on to the thicker strings. So that's why I'm going on the high E and not, say, the B or the G. So let's try this. What we're going to do is we're going to use a very simple 1-3-4 pattern like you saw before, which is root note, step up, half step up. And then every 2 frets, we're going to do that. So in a sequence like this. And you can hear how I'm getting a very fluid sound out of that. And that's just using pull-offs. We can then do the exact reverse, going from the 2nd fret in the same sequence up to the 12th fret. So you can see how that's giving me a very, very fluid tone. And you can hear I'm still picking the first note of each one of those sequences. Otherwise, you can just move, say, all the way up a fretboard, 2 frets or 1 fret at a time in any interval you please, or according to a scale, if you can work that out, without really picking at all. The only thing you have to remember to do is always keep one finger on the string, because otherwise it's going to get very, very choppy because you're going to sound the open string in between. So you always have to keep one finger on the string. So allow me to demonstrate what I mean. Look. Look, Mom, no picking hands. And that's how you would use a legato technique. And what I'd recommend doing to train yourself up to do this sort of technique is just do what I was doing. Use a 1-3-4 or a 1-2-4 in different combinations. So you might try 1-4-2 and then 3-4-1. Let's try that. Something like that. And you can use that kind of technique in that kind of pattern just over and over and over again. And it'll take some time for your fingers to get used to it, because it's going to feel really, really weird at first if you've never done it. Because you're just going to be inclined to think, oh man, I have to pick that note. You know, you're going to be trying to do... when you're trying to do... And like any technique like this, I'd recommend start out slowly, because again, when you try to build speed before you build skill with a technique, what's going to happen is you're going to get fast. You're going to get really, really fast, but your playing is going to wind up being sloppy. And you don't want that. You want to have very crisp, very accurate playing. So I would recommend start slow, work your way up once you know that you know the technique. That's about all I have to say as far as the legato playing goes. I'd just like to remind you, if anyone has questions, comments, suggestions, please feel free to send them to us either on a direct message here on YouTube or just put it in the comment box. We'll be sure to check that every so often, because we want to make sure we're doing as many videos that you guys want as possible. Again, this channel isn't for me and the people who are working on it with me. It's for you guys who are trying to learn guitar, trying to get better at guitar, because that's what we all want. So until next time, guys, peace out, have a good day.